Chapter 10 The Merry-Go-Round. It was sad, boy. Michael couldn't believe how long he had been since he'd seen his gloomy mug of his. Come on, Michael, let's get out of here. Michael followed Sad Boy down an alley and over a fence, down towards the shore. They were running for a good 10 minutes at the most, and Michael could now hear the sirens everywhere. A gunshot, then followed by silence. It took a while, but the two were finally at their old hideout around Coney Island. Hey, check it out. Here we are again, where it all began, announced Sad Boy. At first, Michael didn't recognize it, but Sad Boy was right. They were at the spot by the shore where the bloody Shamrocks originally started out. Looking around, Michael saw an old merry-go-round he used to play on as a kid. For some reason, he began to feel sick to his stomach. He shook the feeling off and then turned to Sad Boy to take a gander at the pale-faced elf to see how much the years had changed him. Noticing that Michael was doing this, Sad Boy started to grow self-conscious in his old, insecure manner. What's up, Mike? Sputtered out Sad Boy as he began blinking rapidly while brushing away his hair from his face. Yup. It was Sad Boy, all right, in all his eccentric glory. Former Bloody Shamrock and bass player for some group of potheads all into that CBGB scene back in the day, back when it still meant something. Sad Boy, or really Gabriel Mamikani, was an Armenian that had an air about him of an orphan straight out of some Dickensian novel, sporting now a crazy-ass hairdo that looked part mohawk without the side shaved and part whatever Robert Smith had from The Cure. The fucker was still pale as white night and looked like some Victorian-era vampire, especially considering his attire. He had a Nazi fascist-looking trench coat on made of black leather, a black blouse with fluffy cuffs all feathered out and studded up with rhinestones. Pretty much black everything except for the silky red tie. Gabe? I can see you finally let yourself go. Nice to see you've come to terms with how much of a weirdo you really are. Michael, what are you doing back there? What were you doing back there? Asked Sad Boy, looking surprised to be seeing him after all this time. Gabe? I'm looking for Rad Boy. Have you seen him? No, why? Never mind, I'll tell you later, replied Michael, not wanting to get into the matter just yet. After a while, Gabe began to grow curious. It had been years since he had seen Michael, and it was disappointing for him to see Michael acting so cold and distant, seeming to be in a world of his own where nothing else mattered. So you're looking for Anthony? Asked Gabe, trying to break the ice. Yeah, replied Michael. Sad Boy began to grow weary, feeling a bit awkward. Then a thought popped in his head. How come you didn't come to see me first? I mean, I might have been able to help you out. Michael shrugged. I never heard anything from you, man. Actually, I heard you moved to LA with a group you used to play with, responded Michael finally. We did, but the scene over there is a bunch of drag queens thinking they're the next Led Zeppelins, when they're definitely not, so me and the boys have had enough of LA and been back since April. Sad Boy then lit a cig. He was the biggest chain smoker Michael had ever met. Hell, he had been smoking the entire time they were running there. Yeah, we were in LA. The scene is garbage out there. Just a bunch of asshole musician wannabes doing everything they can to become famous except actually making music, detailed Gabe, now feeling a bit chatty. So fucking fake out there. Me and the boys were almost done with the West Coast. That is until we decided to go up to Seattle just to sightsee. And man, were we surprised. If there's any place in America where's Rad Boy? Interrupted Michael, not wanting to be mean about it, doing so, but Michael wasn't feeling for Gabe's chatty mood. He's in Uptown, replied Gabe, feeling a little discouraged. Where? Somewhere up there, with Nikki, replied Gabe as he turned and peered at Michael the second he mentioned her name. Michael cringed up for a second, but said nothing and concluded with, I don't want to talk about that. Gabe paused and then concluded with, I understand. After another minute passed, Michael grew curious to know how much Gabe knew about Rad Boy since the gang broke up. So, Rad Boy's finally made it up to Uptown, huh? What's he selling up there? Asked Michael. Coke, what else? Plus, he has a deal with some of the suits up there. He's part of the Ravishers now. Oh, the Ravishers. There was a group Madboy was all too interested in avoiding at all costs. A shifty bunch with really good connections with all the suits in Manhattan. Ha! I can see you're still wearing the old uniform. Always a one-man army you were, commented Gabe, eyeing his dreads. Hearing Gabe mention the old uniform began to cheer up Michael a bit. for he was referring to Michael's Leatherman jacket, which on the back had a bloody Shamrock emblem. A shamrock dripping in blood, of course. The Leatherman was sleeveless. It was worn over some rhinestone studded denim jacket unbuttoned. Where do you get that tank top and that crazy ass design on it? Asked Gabe. Gabe was referring to the wife beater that had a unique specialty made design on it. A Patrick Nagall like design of some naked white vampire chick with a big red hair, big red bush, big red tits, covered with red blood, and on her knees, screaming up at the heavens while stabbing herself with a stake through her own heart. Actually, I came up with a design for some tattoo artist that did it for me in the slammer on the left side of my chest. The stake is supposed to be going through my heart as well. Later, I liked the design so much, I got some t-shirt maker out here to have it done on my wife beater. That way, people can see without me walking around shirtless. Although, pretty sure the chicks would love that, but then again, so would the fags. And I don't want to send the wrong messages. But the design sounds pretty bitchin', doesn't it? Although having a tattoo on my chest and the same design on my wife beater might sound redundant. Fuck it, it's the 80s. Yeah, as you can see, Michael has gone off again in his own head, describing shit about himself to himself. Let's for a moment there act like we'd like to take interest and listen in just how far Michael is now willing to go, entertaining his own damn ego, shall we? Also, I got a tattoo of Bloody Shamrock on my right shoulder, a tattoo of some palm trees overlooking a beach scene overlooking a sunset on my left. I like tropical settings like that. And here's my centerpiece. On my underbelly, I got a bunch of kiss marks trailing down to my junk done in red lipstick. And the funny part is, whenever I bring over a chick, they see it, and first, they'll look at me all anxious and concerned like they're wondering what type of freak they're getting involved with here. And sometimes think it's real lipstick. This one time I had some Cuban girl, pretty little thing that was all legs and lips, curly jet black hair. She asked me whose it was when I took off my shirt and pants and she saw them. Was sure wondering when the hell I got them since she'd been with me all day. Did he get blown at Fat Tony's Pizzeria while I took five heading over to the ladies' room? I then told her I'd just been kissed down there so often that the love marks had been rendered permanent. She shrugged then smiled as if she found it kinky, and then went on to mark me up some more with those juicy fat lips of hers, giving me a one-way ticket to Baton Rouge, you can say. Michael was about to mention all that to Gabe, but then felt like he didn't want to get too sidetracked. He felt like opening up a bit, but he also still had too much on his mind. Mentioning that to cheer me up, huh? Well, that's fine and all, but now that Gabe had mentioned the old uniform, Michael then began to grow sore, wondering what he ever did with his. Yeah, I'm wearing our old uniform. Whatever happened to yours? Asked Michael. That pissed off Gabe a little to hear. Damn, Michael. What year are you still living in? And that pissed off Michael a little to follow. I don't know, man. Last I checked, it was still the 70s. I mean, that's what happens when you get sent to the slammer. You get no sense of time passing by, even though every year out of your life feels like a decade. You end up feeling frozen in a moment. Then release date comes and you're just frosted and thrown back out before getting too comfortable, replied Michael with a self-righteous frown. Michael was starting to get pretty pompous around Gabe, and Gabe and the old gang used to be one of the few people Michael didn't act that way with. This discouraged Gabe to see. Michael, drop the wise talk. You don't have to be in character around me. I know you could talk like a normal human being in English when you want to, but you just choose to be that way because it sounds bitchin', reacted Gabe, looking dismantled. Michael frowned up some more, but this time the ex made the whole self-righteous sense about it. But alas, thought Michael, for if one thing was true, Madboy did have his own unique character, and his vicious sense of charm was all anyone else saw of him, at least on the surface. Says Michael felt like he was such a connoisseur when it came to mannerisms, since he enjoyed studying people so well. He had become very self-conscious of how he wanted to express himself when others were around. You want to hear the rundown? Well, let's begin. First off, most importantly, since Michael hated the stoic and expressionless types, he felt most centered when showing his wild and vibrant side. But by wearing his heart on the end of his sleeve, and what that meant to Michael when he's surrounded by others, usually forked in two separate directions. Usually for Michael, it all depended on their gender. In other words, with other hombres around, I'll just beat the fuck out of them if they get too pushy, plain and simple. But with chicks around, I'll make them crave for it. by serving it to him on a silver platter like some savory delicacy. Yeah, I'm sexist like that. Want to make something of it? Also, there was an idiosyncrasy that Michael had developed over the course of his life, having this panting thing going on, like there was a wild animal within him. Mouth partially cocked open, taking in long, fast, hard breaths of air like a wild cat would do. I can growl like one too, no, really. Puffing up his chest with pride as he did it, and the more excited he got, the harder he'd pant. Yeah, listen to this spiel and try taking notes if it starts to get too complicated for all you guys to hear. I subconsciously developed this idiosyncrasy on purpose back when I was a kid. Did I lose you then? Well, let me explain further. Back when I was a kid, this one time my dad took me to the zoo to see the animals. And it was then that, I don't know, when it came to checking out the tiger cages, it was then something about the nature of those wild cats that deeply inspired me and made me want to be one too. There was this sense of kinship I felt, like finding a lost family that I had never known about, or feeling one's or the feeling one might get sinks into themselves and who or what, in this case, they might have been in a different life. Now, fast forward into the present, this particular habit has had the effect of scaring the shit out of other wannabe alphas around over the thought that what they might be dealing with when confronting me is a real wild animal escaped from the zoo. Although sometimes I also use it on chicks, particularly when I'm feeling, how do I say this? Michael thought of the feeling he felt in those moments, and the word the best to describe it: viciously fucking horny. Yeah, that's the ticket. Viciously fucking horny. And I want to scare the weak away to tempt all the bad mama jammas that be willing to ride this wild bronco here. Yeah. If I was a Greek mythological creature, I'd be part tiger from the waist up, part bronco from the waist down, with one giant ass boa constrictor growing out from you know where. When it came to his talk, although Michael liked to keep it simple the way he had it in the 70s, keeping it with the lingo of that decade, and keeping it in contrast to what people saw of him when he kept it quiet. And what that contrast meant was it being all about that old tongue in cheek slang, cheerfully strutting one's words around like you wanted to turn heads and make them smile. I don't like how people talk these days, especially, I don't know. Everything is so rad and sounding bad and rowdy and vicious, cranked up to the max jacks. And I don't feel like I need my talk to be like that to seem menacing, since my form already dictates that. So as for my talk, best example I can give showing what that 70s slang from Coney Island was all about is, well, think about all those goofy, silly talk you saw from those characters on Welcome Back, Carter. Yeah. So, well, yeah, them basically. Those guys, those sweat hogs there. Mannerism self expression was very important, Michael, because it meant a lot to Michael to have people connect with him and how he felt. For he'd be damned if he was to be an island to himself with millions of people around all throughout the Big Apple. Yup, so what'd you think about that? Thought Michael. But in all reality, really asking himself. And then, when he got his answer, Michael frowned hard and felt like bringing it all together. You know, I know I can be a pompous prick, but I'm going to be genuine for once right now and tell you the real deal. Truth of the matter is, back before I learned how to talk the talk, I was practically an island to myself. I was a quiet type and didn't know how to open up and express myself outside of beating the fuck out of somebody. And when you're that way, you're left alone like an island to yourself, even though that's not how you want things to be. During those years, seeing how hard it was to connect and seeing how little anyone cared as they abandoned me when I couldn't catch their interest, that all made me choose to be different. Truth is, if you ain't got the talk, if you ain't the confrontational type, and if you don't have the in your face attitude, everyone will think you're not worth their time and attention, and they'll think they're better. And the problem with having all bite and no bark is then you're seriously left alone because everyone is now scared of you, like you're some deranged animal when you're not. Back then, I could like somebody, just genuinely like them, but it didn't matter because they're all really just a bunch of miserable assholes with some mysterious issues with themselves. They all think they're superior, that they're better. All of them do. Even the ones that aren't wish they were, which is exactly the same shit, really. When you have the type that think they're superior, or at least they should be, they'll never want to waste their time with something they consider as an inferior. There are some wild, uncommunicative fuck that they imagine really belongs in a zoo. I think everyone is that way to a degree. And that there is a problem with human nature. Money isn't the root of all evil. Arrogance is, vanity is. Without those elements, those that are rich wouldn't mind so much sharing their wealth. But because they think they're better, they'll then try to hoard it as much as possible. And are never able to feel satisfied with what they got since they can't stop comparing their wealth with those that are wealthier. Truth of the matter is, vanity is like a vacuum, empty space trying to absorb everything around it to give it itself a sense of form and grandeur, absorb everything and everybody. I first realized this when I eventually did learn how to speak, and then the lot came flocking towards me to take a piece of me. Before, they wanted a piece of me because they couldn't match my bite. Now they wanted a piece of me because they couldn't match my bark. But I wasn't even trying to bark. I just wanted to find a way to relate. All those arrogant assholes now wanting something, all take and no give, selfish. They're all self-absorbed lot. They're empty vessels in a sea of empty vessels where they should just accept their pitiful selves and how pitiful everyone else is also around them. Well, I'm not a fucking empty vessel. You know, I used to genuinely want to like people, but seeing how they either want to treat me like I don't exist when I'm acting shy or try to take a piece of me when I act the opposite, I fucking hate them all now. All. Fuck them all. Now that I can talk the talk and can let them know who I am and what I'm about, I show more character, more pizzazz, and more attitude than they'll ever have in their entire lives. If that isn't enough, I'll beat the ever loving motherfucking shit out of them then. And I've never lost a fight, never lost one. Practice has made me perfect in the streets, and I've become that good. And besides my fists, I also now got a pair of lips, a real mouth on me. No one has been able to match me on that level either. I got more life in me in a spur of a second than any of you can churn out in your entire lives living and breathing on this earth. I got more heart, courage, more. I got fire, lots and lots of fire. And if they ever decide to try and take a piece of me, then I'll burn them alive with a little stuck eye alone. If you think you're that bad, come and try me. If you want it, you got it. You want some, come get some. Was du willst, du blöde Wichse? Willst du auf die Fresse? Komm schon, zeig dir, was du hast. Come. But first, prepare yourself the burden, because first I'll inflate your empty vanity with oxygen. With the snap of my fingers, I'll ignite it into flames. I will destroy you and your egos and your alter egos and your heroes and your gods. And I'll do it all in style just to rub it in, just so you can feel the burn that comes from being foolish and insolent and thinking you could try to step up to the sun, and try to pocket it. Because I'm the motherfucking sun in comparison to you. Burn, you motherfucker, burn. Yeah, go ahead, run around screaming your head off like that. I like the sight of that. I need a good laugh. And when I'm through with you, when I start to get bored, when you begin to make me frown, I'll just snap my fingers a second time, and then you'll be dead. Rompus pompous. Michael then had this weird inclination to pull out his rosary and do something with it. After a minute, that weird inclination faded away, and Michael decided to go back to asking Gabe about Madboy.